Welcome to the Leader Equation, everybody. We were talking disc and all kinds of fun things and almost didn't go live because we were just having fun together. So I'm excited to bring everybody in. It has actually been a while since Christy and I have been live here, but we wanted to come back with somebody really, really good. And so we are thrilled about today and today's episode, which is number 15 of season 2 here. So today we have Robbie Henderson and partner Travis Bell of the Bell Henderson Team and their amazing director of operations, Kelli Turco. We're like excited because partners are just hard. And these two have been together for 11 years. That's one more than 10 years, which is amazing. And we've had Kelli there since 2017, which is awesome too. So we're thrilled to jump in. I'm going to say you're on track for 100 million. I know they gave me real numbers in the 80s there, but they're on track for 100 million. So we're going to be watching them and seeing what they do. And so before we kind of get started, I'm going to have you guys kind of just say who you are, where you're located, and how you gotten into real estate. And then we'll kick it back to me here. But why don't we start with Robbie really quickly, and then we'll head to Travis and Kelli.
All right. Hey, I'm Robbie, and I am one of those guys whose parents were in the business. So when I was 18 years old, I got my license. When I graduated from college, I went full-time into it. And so now I've been in it for 30 years. So, been selling it forever. And we live in Tampa. We live in the South Tampa market, and we predominantly sell in South Tampa, North Tampa, but we venture, in the area, in the suburbs a little bit as well.
Love it.
I'm Travis Bell, obviously in South Tampa as well. I've been selling real estate for 16 years. I had a out of college professional consulting career. Then I ran a little business for a while. Then my mother-in-law, of all people, which is amazing, she got me into real estate. So she hired my wife and I both at the same time to come over. And the reason I jumped into real estate, no one will ever make this guarantee to their son-in-law, but she basically said, come over and help me run my business because I'm a mess. And I will guarantee you a salary for a year in real estate. And no one ever gets that.
Wow.
So we had a 9-month-old baby at the time. I remember taking her and my wife and my mother-in-law to mega camp in August of one year, pushing her on a stroller. My daughter, not my mother-in-law, but and so for the next 5 years, she taught me everything there is to know about real estate. She was amazing, and she's literally one of the best realtors that I know. So she got me into it. Like I said, I have a wife, I have 2 beautiful daughters, 14 and 16 years old. We're having fun, and that's about it.
Awesome. Kelli.
So my name is Kelli. I am the director of operations on the team. I actually live outside of Denver, actually outside of Boulder, Colorado. So I am not in the South Tampa Market Center. I got into real estate in 2009 when it was the time of the short sales, started a short sale negotiation company, transitioned into general real estate when the market got better, and then joined the team with Travis and Robbie in 2017.
And Travis and Robbie, how did you guys end up partnering? We didn't cover that, I don't think.
Not yet.
So I'll say this. So Travis had already been at Keller Williams. I came into Keller Williams in 2008. We were on the same floor, and it was just a small world.
The outcast floor, though, wasn't it, Robbie?
We were on the second floor. We were, right. We weren't in the it floor. And,
that's right.
And but he went to high school with my wife. His mother-in-law taught my sister. His father was my first job at the Y, and his brother and I used to play poker, but we didn't know each other. But we had a lot of friends, and we had a lot of mutual acquaintances, and then we started a mastermind and kind of figure out how to do things, for our own businesses. And we were masterminding, at 8:30, 8 o'clock in the morning and talking about what we were going to do. And we realized that we had all this stuff that overlapped, yet we didn't, infringe on each other's businesses. And we figured, why not collaborate, put it together and, capture more. And, I think, it's a lot more long story than that, but
I'll actually simplify it. Not that it needs to be, because that's all accurate, but really the real thing was I had a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and Robbie had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and a teenager at the time. And we simply wanted to have one weekend every other weekend to not worry about real estate. And that's really the crux of it, right, Robbie? Is like, we just said, can we throw our phones down for a weekend and have somebody else cover it? And then, oh yeah, we have all this other stuff that kind of works out that, that kind of just fit into place. And I will tell you at the end of the day, I don't know how long of an answer you want, but we got lucky, because if you were to put our two personalities side by side, you asked about DISC earlier prior to reporting, they are completely opposite. They would fit together like a glove, and form a perfect square, more than likely. So we got really lucky that he's got a ton of strengths that are not my strengths. I've got a couple of strengths that might not be his strengths. So it just seems to work out well together. And we got lucky in that aspect. I would tell anyone that's looking to do a partnership to start with the question that you asked earlier, and what's your DISC? And make sure those things line up.
So
That's just my 2 cents.
We'll dive back into that. Let's plow through our quick fire really quick, and then I want to come back to that.
Sorry.
I want to know the DISC, and I want Kelli to share her DISC too, because she's not necessarily the typical DISC either. So we covered how many years in business, 11 years together. What was your profit year one, and what was your profit last year?
Profit year one, pre-Kelli, I don't know, and that's a bad answer. I can tell you the GCI, but I have no idea what the profit was.
Well, you can tell us the GCI. What was the
It's
GCI
a true answer.
and what's the GCI going to be this year?
So our GCI in 2011, which is our first full year, we joined in 2010, but in 2011 was $420,000.
Okay.
And our GCI last year was 1.4, and then this year, Kelli, we're going to be at close to 2.
We are going to hit 2 million this year. Yes.
2 million. Yes.
I love it. Okay, awesome.
That's a big number for us.
How many people are on your team? That's an awesome number. How many people on the team, counting your virtual?
Currently, we have 7 people, soon to be 8. So that would be 3 agents and soon to be 4, which includes Travis and Robbie, because they're both in production. 3 administrative staff, including myself and our assistant, who is virtual in the Philippines. And then we have a relationship manager who is kind of like our ISA. Just we call him a relationship manager.
I love that.
Out of those 8, Kelli is virtual, and so is Sheila in the Philippines. So 2 out of the 8.
All right, up to 25%. Love it. Book that impacted you the most? Kelli, who wants to take this?
Robbie looked like he was going to talk first.
I would just say, I would always say the MREI. The MREI was always instrumental in us, and I really do think that from day one we have followed the model to the best of our ability. But I will give the credit. I love the one thing. That truly is my, that's on my board as I walk out. That's the one thing is, just because I'm not bright enough to figure out 2 things, and so just give me one thing and let me go.
Yeah, but you were also part of Jay's initial launch group, right?
I was, and yeah, that was cool.
I'm not sure what that thing was called, but okay, yeah, that thing, right?
66 days makes a habit. Yep.
There you go.
Love it.
Do either one of you guys want to share a book, or should I go on to the next one?
I had 2, and I thought one of you guys would maybe say Atomic Habits, since we read it as a team. But my other one would be Fierce Conversations. Honestly, it's a goal of mine now to read it every single year. I'm really good at sweeping things under the rug and not having a conversation about it. So continuing to read that is making me a better person.
I love that. That one's good for business and personal. Travis, anything you want to add?
I don't really have a book that's inspired me too much. There's a lot of them, right? I can't pick one.
Okay.
Right.
All right. How many streams of income do each of you have?
I have 3, soon to be 4.
Okay. Robbie?
I would tell you that my primary is Bell Henderson. However, there's 3 or 4 out there, that get things, from owning a property and stuff like that.
Cool. Travis?
I just have 2.
All right. And I forgot to ask you this before the call, but we usually do superpower. You can either tell me your own superpower or tell me someone else, one of the other guys' superpower. So who wants to take that first?
I'll take it.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Kelly.
No, go.
Ladies
go.
first.
Go yours. Go with yours.
I would say that Robbie's superpower is, and it amazes me every time, is that you can throw a whole lot of information out there and he just takes a deep breath and goes, great, thanks. And he rolls it up. He goes, you can do this, or you can do this. And it comes off like I would have to write the whole thing out for hours, but it just comes off like right off the cuff. And it's like when he's coaching somebody, coaching a client, counseling somebody, it's like, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, oh, well, that makes all the sense in the world.
I love it.
And I think that's your superpower.
I love it.
I was just gonna say for both of them, I think that both of their superpowers together is just how they had such a successful business before, I joined the team. And before we really started building this thing, and their ability to just let go and trust, me and the other people on the team, has been amazing. It's been something amazing to experience. And, I feel like they're like the best rainmakers ever.
Oh, I love that. I feel like we should dive into that too, Lindsay. So did either of you want to say superpower for Kelly before you jump in?
Yeah, okay, so I'll go for Kelly. I was about to talk about Travis, but real quick on Kelly. Kelly, I would just tell you that Kelly's superpower is she is able to look at the big picture and keep us focused on it time after time. It's kind of like when you said, did you send us the list? Did we look at the list? She sent us the list 5 times. She finally called us and got us on the phone to talk about the list. So she's a dog with a bone and she gets it done. Yeah. And I will tell you that, Travis and I, when she says we let go, she's right. She is the puppet master. She is the one up top and she's doing the marionettes or whatever they're called, Marinucci's. So.
Marionettes. I'm picturing
marionettes. Yes.
I
like Marinucci's better.
Yeah, the Marinucci. We'll call you the Marinucci master, Kelly. So for those of you joining us on the Leader Equation for the first time, we're chatting with owners, founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and their shotgun leaders inside and outside of real estate about what adds to the leadership formula, what subtracts, what divides, and most importantly, how can you multiply your results? So I'm going to throw it back to Lindsay because I know we have DISC and all kinds of stuff we want to dive into. So Lindsay, where do we want to start?
All the things, but you know what? The fact, I wrote this down so big on my paper is the word trust, because at the end of the day, I think that's one of the hardest things between operations and sales for sales to release. And there's 2 of you releasing. And so what did Kelly have to do in order for you to feel like you could trust her? And when did that really happen? Was it right away?
I think it was pretty instantaneous. Yes. When we were lucky enough to have Kelly come into our world, it was like, if you've ever hired somebody that really meant a lot to you after the fact, then you realize at the moment when you hired them that it was the right move, because all the things that she said and all the things that she did, it was just like, it was like the weight went off our shoulders and it was just amazing. And I would say, I don't know, Kelly, you might be better to answer that question, but did you ever feel in the beginning that we didn't trust you with everything? It was like kerplunk, we gave you everything on your desk and we're like, take it.
Yeah, I walked in and no, I think that's why I'm saying, I think it was such a unique situation because I hear so many other operations people. And I think I even asked you once, Travis, I was like, what made you trust me from the beginning? Right. Because they were that way. They were that way up front. And, I think I asked you, like, was it my references? Like what made you, trust me from the beginning? I did come in, I think when I came in, you said, you're going to figure out like your first 90 days. So I must have made an impression in that first 90 days.
Well, and you were an REO company, right?
Short sale negotiations.
Short sale negotiations. That's right. I just said Oreo. But yeah, so you were clearly like having to problem solve on a regular basis. So that probably helped you guys kind of understand, you know, that she was going to take things off your plate and problem solve, I would hope.
Right. That's the biggest reason why she was hired for the position, right? Because she demonstrated all of that. Kelli was the first time that we went through the full CV process, and our coach at the time pushed us to that and said, don't deviate from it. You know, as painful as this going to be, I think we ended up counting, we reviewed 450 resumes. Because when you hire a director of operations, it span, even though you clearly define what it is, you get the FedEx drivers, you get the warehouse run, you know, so half of those go away immediately. But still, to go through the whole thing, what was interesting is that we almost made a hire before Kelli. And again, listening to our coach, and we'll talk about him more in a minute, but just ringing out in our ears, follow the entire process. So when we did the reference checks, the first level checked out until the last one. And the last one I knew really well because she's in the industry. And her actual reference check checked out until the very end when I said, would you hire her again? And she's like, nope. And she's like, and here's why. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And then it was like literally the next day I was so bummed. And the next day I was going on a short trip with my wife just for like a night. And we were driving, she was driving, I was working in the car, and I get this random text. And it says something like, hey, are you still hiring for the director of ops? You know, dash Kelli. And I'm like, and I remember the name, and I like went back and I just started remembering, like, we did one transaction together, and it was like a year and a half before. And it was from that moment on, I think within a week, we had her entire CV process done, right, Kelli?
Yeah.
Like I got back, we did the first step on Monday, Tuesday, and then it was like, remember we met across the street at a title company, you know, to finish up the process. And within a week, we had it all done. And I'm like, this is what was meant to be.
I love that. I think you bring up something that Lindsay and I have both seen a million times, which is people not going all the way through the references until, and if you hadn't, you wouldn't have found that out about the previous potential hire. And I can think of I know one operations person in our industry that's been on 4 really top teams in the company, and none of them checked references, and none of them would have hired her if they had checked the other reference, and they all know each other. So that's awesome.
Oh, wow.
That up. Yeah. They just
Follow
didn't
the process.
Yep. Love it.
Well,
I don't
and
know what your
so
original question was.
obviously, you're good. No, there was
the same thing.
it was all really good information. And I think what I need to ask though is, you know, when you guys were going through that, so now you were down to one person, right? Because a lot of people will also make that hire out of pain. But Kelli was obviously a standout, you know, applicant anyways. And we believe that it was probably meant to be, right? And that's why everything happens for a reason.
So I would tell you that, you know, and Travis will tell you, our first coach, and we were looking for a brand new position, right? It was the director of operations. Yep. So we still had, quote, our listing manager and our transaction coordinator in-house. So this was and with Travis and I being in production, and we had one buyer's agent, it wasn't affecting our business. It was affecting our growth. So I think Travis took it upon himself to really dive in and make sure that that first hire was realistic. And I use realistic, Travis, for the Bentley girl. You know, Travis hired one girl that was great, or interviewed one girl that interviewed one girl that was great, and her goal was in 2 years to drive a Bentley. And we went, well, that's probably not the job you're going to have through us. And you know, and so our point was, he really dove into it. When he said he looked through that, I mean, I'll bet you took to the first and the second step 7 or 8 people, you know?
Yeah, I think it was, closer to like 10, because I remember even driving over halfway across the state to do the second interview with somebody because they were moving to Tampa, but they couldn't come back for that. And I'm like, I'll meet you wherever, you know? And so it's just interesting, but we had a big why at that time, you know, and we wanted to, we knew it was very important to fill that role with the right person. And I only really wanted to do it once. I only wanted to train one person once. And then just to fast forward, when we hired Kelli, we're like, you're going to go through the CV process and master it, because the next people you're going to hire. And she has.
Kelli, what was it
Right.
about Travis and Robbie that attracted you as visionaries? When did you go like, oh yeah, this is the right team for me?
Well, when I reached out to Travis to begin with, just their reputation in the agent community, regardless. I mean, there were other people who had director of ops and other positions posted, and I specifically reached out to them only, and I didn't apply through Indeed. I found, even if we hadn't done a deal together, I probably would have found his phone number and texted him and just directly and say, hey, can we have a confidential conversation? And then I think, just going through the process with him and hearing their vision, knowing that they were in coaching, like everything that they had aligned with what I was looking for. And I knew I didn't want to be a one assistant or operations person on a team. I did not want to work in the business. I wanted to work on growing a business. And I felt like I had that opportunity with them.
That's key. That's super key right there.
Now, when you were actually getting hired, though, was there another admin in place as well, or were you coming in and going to be doing that and knowing that you were going to grow?
No, they had a listing manager and a closing manager, transaction manager. And funny enough, they were both each individually with them before they partnered. So Travis had somebody and Robbie had somebody, and when they partnered, and so they were on the team for a long time. And so here I am coming into a position with people who've been with them for 10 plus years. So it was interesting.
It was, well, expand on that, because that is actually one of the things that we see be very difficult, is when you've got two people already there and then somebody comes in and they're over everybody. It's like a change in regime. And so sometimes we see people split because of that, right? And so walk us through, what was that like?
Well, so when I came in, they had said to me that the team who is here might not be, the team who was going to get us to where we needed to be. And so one of the people left, I don't know how long after I was there, a couple months or so. But the closing as a transaction coordinator, her and I became really close. I think that she had been with Robbie for a really long time. And I think that she saw how I was helping them, and that I knew what I was talking about, and I was, helping in the business. So I think she, really gained trust in me relatively quickly.
Love it.
I mean, you walked into a situation where, Robbie and I wanted you, but the administrative team didn't think they needed you, right? That was a tough position. And so it was our job ahead of time to kind of pave that road to say, here are all the benefits of bringing somebody like this on. She has way more experience than we do. And when you have questions and challenges, isn't it nice to have this person to go to versus Robbie and I, which could be going in 17 different directions at any time, and so we had a lot of work mentally to get everybody prepared for Kelli.
Yeah. And I think I didn't feel it as much, probably because they had laid so much of the work up front, for sure.
So speaking of you guys going in 17 directions, I hear a lot of ops people who struggle when they have partner leaders. So what advice on the leadership side would you guys have for partnerships? And Kelli, what advice would you have on, I'm the ops person and I have two different people leading my team and me?
You guys want to go first?
I'll go first, just because it's know your role, right? And my role is not to lead Kelli. Travis and Kelli have that together. They're the ones that meet together weekly on the 411. They're the ones that do that. And again, I'll tell you, as the 50-50 partner, I've got to know what my role is, and it's not to lead Kelli.
That's great clarity. So Robbie, what is your role?
Yeah.
That is
tell us like kind of what's Travis's, thing.
So,
and what's his thing?
What is
I just
my
look
role?
pretty.
I'm more on the, I'm still in production. And, you know, Travis and I primarily work on the listing side. We do work to try and get more development projects, as well as resale listings. And then I would tell you that I'm more of the ear for the buyer agent and the soon to be buyer agent under her. So that would be primarily my side while still staying in production.
Cool.
And
And
I would
Travis?
say I have it kind of easy because I just work with Kelly and Kelly works with the rest of the operations group, you know, but so I would say that, you know, if there's any kind of strategy conversation, it's the three of us, you know. I would say that Kelly and I probably prep it a little bit and just talk about it. But, you know, Kelly and I have gone in and out of the whole 411 thing for a while. And I think now we've been in a groove for a little while, which we both like. I like keeping her accountable. I don't like her keeping me accountable at all, you know, but it's nice to have that yin and yang because she gets it, you know, and so she can hold us accountable. And being on our weekly coaching calls with MAPS now, she hears what our coach is telling us. So we can't sugarcoat anything or can't hide anything because not only does she hear it, he records it and sends it to all of us again in a recap. So she absolutely will ping us and say, okay, you know, tell us what's happening here. And then she does a really good, and she'll tell you more, but she does a really good job of keeping our listing coordinator, contract coordinator, and our VA just all in line and working so efficiently. It's amazing.
Travis, are you sharing your 411 with her as well as her sharing yours with her? Okay, that's awesome. I love when
Terrible.
that. It's
Just
so much
terrible.
clarity. And I love that Kelly, so as partners, we talked about this before we got on the call, but I think it's really important. Robbie and Travis, you guys are both on the coaching call with your coach, and Kelly's on that call too. And then Kelly has her own operations coach. So I think that's really different than we hear a lot of people do.
And one of the things, and one of the other things that we've started doing that I think has really helped, even though I do a one-on-one with Travis every single week, right after that coaching call, the three of us have a weekly like business meeting. So right after that coaching call is over, the three of us jump on a call, you know, talk about what we just talked about and what we're going to do next in the business. So I think that helps keep us all on the same page, you know, and if I get something from Robbie, you know, I'll bring up in that meeting, hey, you know, where do you want this to go in my, you know, list of things that we're working on since all of this is going, or vice versa. If Travis sends me something, go ahead, Travis.
So I would just say that on any team, all of those conversations are extremely important. I would say they didn't come to light for us until we figured out how Kelly could work remotely. And then, so it's vastly important now, right? So to have that conversation, like she can't pop in my office and go, hey, that thing that your coach said, blah, blah, blah. So she was the one that implemented that call. So those are the little things that need to be in place for a virtual team. You know, you need to have those wrap ups to say, what's the to do out of this? Don't get your day started and forget about it.
I love that. It's constant triage and air traffic control, really. And I think a lot of teams miss out on that because they're not forced to have those meetings. So that's a awesome benefit to being virtual. Kelly, is there ever any challenges with like Robbie wants to go this direction and Travis wants to go that direction, or they're not aware of what the other one has asked you to do?
I will say that I do not necessarily like feel if there's any friction, like if it's between something with them, I don't feel like I ever feel it. If it's something with like the business, I think especially because we, you know, meet weekly and we know what we're working on, there isn't a lot of like random stuff that comes up that the other one asked me to do, maybe a contract here, or, you know, can you look at this for me, you know, something like that. But and if something does come up, I think we're really good at saying, hey, let's just jump on a call and like, you know, real quick, let's just jump on a call and figure it out.
Love it. Love it. So on the virtual side, oh, sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
You can go. My internet's going in and out because we have storms, so I apologize. But hopefully I'm not too slow here.
You're good.
You're good.
Okay, good. So Kelly, really quickly, with regard to being, virtual, did you guys ever consider doing something where you kind of have like a virtual office where people can pop in and out? Do you ever do that with your virtual assistants?
No. Do you mean pop in and out, like, because I'm in, I don't think I understand the question.
I
Sorry.
don't either.
So it's interesting. What I've seen recently is people having something up like a Zoom room that's open all day and people can kind of pop in and out. And it's been interesting because a lot of people are saying, well, it's so hard for us to schedule time. And, the only time we can get together is when we actually schedule it now. And so, I know you guys were just talking about that, and I wanted to see if that was something that you guys ever thought about implementing, because I've seen some of the teams do it. And it's been interesting to watch because then they kind of feel like they're there with each other too, But so you guys have that one meeting that you implemented. What other meetings then are also on the calendar regularly so that you guys can, make sure you catch up?
And I don't know if you're going this way, but I'm gonna say it just because of the way our team has grown. That pop-up meeting sounds like accountability to me on a work ethic thing. And again, I would tell you, because we've had people that have shown us that, they test really well in the CV, they interview really well, and oh, I forgot, they don't need money, or they don't need to act like they need money. And so my point in telling you this is the biggest
That's the pain
component,
talking right there.
the biggest component that we have with Kelli or anybody that's on this team right now is trust. And I would tell you that when you bring that up, and I'm not saying that doesn't work for other people, I'm just saying for me, it makes me feel like, oh, are you putting in your 9-to-5 job? And we are the biggest people in telling like our relationships manager, dude, you work on Saturdays, take Friday off, go home.
Yeah.
Our listing manager, if she's here past 5 o'clock, we're yelling at her going, you drive, get out of here, leave,
Yeah.
And we're so blessed because since 2017, everything that's come along, really, like our buyer's agent, I mean, the work ethic among everybody associated with us today is awesome. And that's what truly brought Travis and I together in the very beginning, was we both saw each other's work ethic and we worked around the rest of it. You know what I mean?
So you guys tried the virtual thing previously because Kelly went to work for you, then Kelly moved and was kind of commuting and then tried the virtual, and then she left because it wasn't working, and then she came back, and then she moved out of state, and now it is working. What's working now that didn't work then?
So I would say a couple of things. So we have twice a week, we have an 8:30 call, Mondays and Thursdays with the team. It's a Zoom call. So we see each other's face. All 7 of us currently are on the call, 8 next week when we hire this other person. So even our VA in the Philippines, she works her opposite schedule. So she's with us. So that works. During COVID, we all were at home. So we were doing 5 days a week. And then we thought it would be great to do mornings and afternoons. And that was just too much. So we just did mornings. And then once we kind of got into the groove, now we do 2 times a week. So that answers Lindsay's, I think, first question to say, what other meetings do you have?
Yes.
So it's interesting. So when Kelli was hired, we hired her, and a little while after we hired her, she moved to about an hour and a half away. And so she was literally commuting every day, would stay over some nights, but really just every day. And it was a lot of driving on her part, and Robbie and I got this big, stupid idea that we needed her in the office all the time. Because basically at one point we said, you know what, come in the office 3 days a week and work at home for 2 days a week. It's something like that. And then that kind of morphed into Robbie and I thinking we really just need her here 5 days a week. And so at that time we decided, I don't really know how it all went down. It wasn't fun, but it was a mutual, we love you, you love us, all this stuff. Let's just part ways.
The entire hour and a half, 2-hour drive home.
And we were like, what the heck do we do? Like we were immediately lost. And of course we failed miserably after that. And then when COVID hit, our big thing was, like everybody, was care calls. We were calling people all the time. And so Kelly and I, while we hadn't spoken in a little while, we reconnected at family reunion, not reconnected, but we just kind of got back together. We're talking with Colleen and some other people, our buyer's agent. And then we just started talking during COVID, and we would text each other, check in, call, and all that stuff. And then I would just ask her like things like, are you seeing this kind of stuff? And this was when Command was kicking up, you know, all of that, you know. And so finally at one point we just said, well, we're all remote right now. Why not make Kelly an offer to come back, and she can live in Orlando. She doesn't have to come back to Tampa. You know, we don't care. And it took a little while to work out the kinks, but it was awesome. I mean, immediately awesome. And so then we figured out we can do it all remotely. And because of the big trust word, right? We trust her immensely. And so she basically took everything back from us, took a 4 or 5 months to fix everything that we broke, you know, and then put us all back on track, hired a great person, hired another great person. And then fast forward, she not only, when she was in Orlando, she was driving back, you know, and seeing us once a week, but now she's in Denver. So that's not even happening anymore. So we are fully remote and we love it. I mean, we love to see you, but it's working out really well.
What were the things, I'm just curious, because we hear, Lindsay and I hear that a lot from rainmakers of, well, I really just need her in the office. What were the things you thought you needed her in the office for that it turns out you really didn't?
I think the ultimate answer there is that we didn't have the right people on the bus underneath her. And I say that in a loving way. I mean, it wasn't the right, that's not the right way to say it. They are fantastic people. They just square peg, round hole type situation. So we weren't able to spend that much time with those people every day. And we needed somebody, we thought we needed somebody too. And at the end of the day, that was wrong, because you don't need to be face to face or elbow to elbow to do that. You've got all of these 411 things that you can put together and just daily conversations. Like right now, Kelly has a daily conversation with our operations person here on the ground, and it's amazing. And we have, by the way, we don't have the virtual room that you asked about earlier, but we have Slack up 100% of the time. So it's a full, you know, we can always communicate there. Robbie, do you have anything to add to that?
They can communicate on Slack. I'm not, you know, Kelly will tell you.
But why do you think that we had that harebrained idea that we needed her in the office? What's your perspective on that?
Well, because again, when we hired the director of operations, if you remember, the reason we hired her was to grow, right? Travis and I were a little short-sighted in we needed her to be in charge of the admin, right? And be in the office and making sure that this person's doing this and this person's doing that. And, you know, the reality was that was the difference, was once Kelly, you know, we had an amazing woman that was an awesome person on our team that just retired this past summer. And she was awesome. But, you know, Kelly got to hire the last 2 people, and, you know, and really the last 3, and technically she'll be in charge of the 4th, you know, so she's got the trust factor, you know, and I just tell you, it's, you know, people do what they say they'll do.
Do you guys feel like, so go ahead, Christy.
I was just going to say, the thing that you just said that struck me was we hired Kelly for growth. And to go back to what we talked about DISC at the very beginning, because Lindsay and I get this question all the time of what DISC should I be hiring for? If you're hiring for growth, I feel like Kelly is like the perfect unicorn for a growth oriented DOO versus a maintenance DOO. I think there's teams that have different definitions of that. So her DC profile fits. Lindsay and I chat about the DC profile all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell you, and Kelly, you know, you tell me, but like Kelly is amazing at getting the project up and running, making sure that the project is running smoothly, and then finding someone else to take over that project. Okay. And that's what I mean by growth is like we put together, and if you saw our first one, it was pretty cool, but we do a quarterly report that, you know, has just morphed into this thing to where we started out, so, you know, to do it to our 500 SOI in this area. And now we're sending it to 8,000 people. And, you know, and Kelli is, you know, I mean, it's amazing what we've done. I mean, and again, it's something that we do. We don't pay anybody to advertise in it or anything like that. And, you know, but I also think that this is something that where Kelli is just, it's just one of the many things that she does and moves it on to the next thing. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah.
I think that was perfect. Yeah.
Lindsay, what were you going to ask?
Did you guys, I wanted to ask because you guys, you kind of mentioned it, but we haven't asked this question yet. So the people that were already there, Kelli, and when you came in, were you given trust and permission to make the changes and to part ways with them if you wanted to? And did you live with them, or what was that situation?
I think that they gave me the freedom to say this person could work and this person couldn't. I didn't feel like I would be the person having that conversation with somebody if it worked, because they had the long lasting relationships. I mean, these weren't people who were on the team for a year or two. These were long lasting relationships. So yes, I think they looked for my guidance to say, you know, can we make it work with these people? But they were the ones that had the conversation ultimately.
But based on your guidance, you know.
Yeah. That is one of those things too, where, you know, there's long-standing relationships, and Chrissy and I see this all the time. Those people become family, right? So it's really hard to part ways with those people too, because they've given you everything that they could potentially give you, right? And so what did that look like? How did you guys know that they weren't necessarily the people that were going to take you to the next level?
Good question. I
I'll
don't know
tell
if
you,
there was
I'll give you one of the CV classes. One of the CV classes.
Oh, gosh.
Rate yourself and rate everybody on your team.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh gosh.
if you were an 8, 9, or a 10, and I would rate Travis an 8, I would rate myself a 7.
Yeah, right.
I would rate one of the ladies on my team a 7, you know, and again, this is back in the day, and then we had a 4. And the comment was, if you have anybody 4 or under, flush them down. You know, so
well, they color coded them, right? Like the 8s, 9s, and 10s were greens, and then it went down to brown was like 4 under. That's pretty funny.
So again, so we haven't talked about our coaches, but right now we're with Mickey, and Mickey is amazing. But our first hire was Gene Rivers.
Our first coach.
He's our first coach. And we knew Gene from being in all of his classes. It was like we never would go. We always went to his business class, and we live in Tampa. He lives in Tallahassee, and our regional director, Georgia, put us with Gene as the first coach. And again, it was life-changing in our experience. It was life-changing in our direction. If you looked at our production, we were very successful by happenstance. And Gene made us hire Kelli, and that's when things changed.
I will say a huge thing, even with like going through the hiring process right now, and Robbie mentioned it before, the work ethic is like one of the most important things on our team, right? Like we are all, I think everybody has a really great work-life balance. I mean, like as far as time off and, you know, not imposing on people on the weekends. However, you know, that is something that we look for. And it was clear at that time that not everybody on the team had the same work ethic. And so you could easily see who the 4 was.
Well, but I will also add on to that. I agree with both things. I will also say that we did a very poor job of setting expectations for those jobs. Therefore, we had no way to hold them accountable to it. And on top of that, they had this one particular person, you know, they kept giving jobs back, right? And it's like, that is like the worst thing an agent, you know, because you're like, all I can do is just hand this off to somebody. And when you do, you walk away to the next thing. And if you walk back and it's not done, you're like, what the heck happened? You know? And so I would say that we have done, with Kelli's extreme guidance, done a fantastic job now of setting the expectations and hold them accountable. And everyone seems to enjoy their roles on the team. And I have not had anything handed back to me in years. And it's amazing. It's a weird dynamic, because as an early agent, a young agent, a single agent, you know, you have a lot of that handed back and you just don't know what you're doing. But when you follow the process, set the expectations, and keep them accountable, it's amazing how things work.
I think that was a testimony to two things. One is your prior comment about we hired Kelli for growth. There's clarity there. And then it's a classic example of talent pushes. So I've seen very similar situations, and I see a rainmaker have to choose in their mind. They're choosing between the loyalty of my employee who has been with me for a really long time and got me where I am, but they're not going to get me to go, or I choose growth. They feel like they have to choose one or the other. And many of them choose loyalty, and they just let these people stay in the role where they're not thriving. And what you did is you knew that because you had this talent in Kelli, you kind of chose growth in Kelli and then figured out the rest, a way to gracefully, you know, part ways or whatever. So I love
Elegantly said.
Clarity. Good clarity.
So it would be bad if we don't ask you about your communication challenges with the three of you, and to give an actual example of maybe when you struggled with that, because I have somebody messaging me behind the scenes saying, I need to know how they've helped each other communicate better and what that looked like.
You mean just like
challenges?
just
If
like
you said Fierce Conversations was your favorite book because it really helps you.
Yeah, that was a lot on the personal on the personal side.
Okay.
You know, I think Travis and Robbie have very different personalities, right? And so I think just understanding their personality style and what they need out of a conversation is key to, you know, making sure that there aren't any real challenges, just knowing what they're looking for out of the conversation, or if they just need to vent, or if it's going to be a long story short, you know, just knowing what they need out of the conversation.
I would say,
how did you get to that point too?
Well,
Go ahead,
I would just say that we all have different communication styles, right? I can be a very direct person, and sometimes I don't take a breath between, you know, my brain and my mouth, and it often gets me in trouble. And at those times, I think it's like, you know, I got to take a step back, you know, and just realize. And then Robbie's communication style is that he will like to tell you a little bit of a story in it too, right? Which is great, because oftentimes people need that color to understand it. I sometimes don't. So, you know, it's sometimes a dynamic, just like my wife and I, right? We communicate, we got to figure out how to communicate together. You know, I'm not comparing Robbie to my wife, but I'm just saying that it's that important of a relationship that I have to go, okay, you know, I need to hear the story, right? I need to hear the story first before I hear the answer, because that's important to him, right? And then sometimes, unfortunately, he has to bear the burden of hearing my direct answer and then taking a deep breath saying, Travis, you're not being nice right now, or whatever.
I think, Lindsay, just going back to your question, like how, I mean, I think just we've been together for 4 years now, right? So I think it comes with time. I probably didn't understand that my first, you know, 90 days, you know, 6 months, but it just comes over time. Just the constant communication over the years. I think you understand what somebody wants out of the conversation.
But I will say, and I feel like I'm talking a lot about this, but so I will tell you, we are a little different in our team, that Robbie and I will traditionally go on the majority of our listing appointments together. And I know that sounds strange, but you know, so a lot of our listing appointments now are via Zoom, right? So it's no real skin off our back to both hop on a Zoom and go through it. But what's fantastic about it is that you've got typically 2 people that you're meeting with, and you've got 2 people here. The personalities range the full spectrum, right? So on cue or not on cue, we seem to figure out, okay, one person is just going to present on this particular scenario. The other person is just there to observe, watch, knock down objections. And one of the personalities on this call is going to fit better with that seller. And it just seems to work well, really well.
And that's a follow-up question that this person's asking. They are on a team in a partnership, and they're asking, is Kelli specifically, is there one that you tend to gravitate towards more and go to more with your questions or your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so Robbie's pointing at Travis.
Well, if she wants a yes, she goes to Robbie.
I mean, I think I just grab Travis and I's personality style is more in line. And I think because we, also do like the weekly 4-on-1, that just naturally I gravitate towards Travis more than Robbie. But one of the things I do miss the most, though, honestly, about being virtual is I would always go in the office early anyway. And it was like that 30 minutes that I got to spend with Robbie before anybody else came in the office. So, but I think just now, especially being virtually, not talking to him as much, I definitely just talk to Travis more.
I'm curious.
That doesn't seem like it's a problem.
Why you're asking.
And less is more with me. So the less of me, the better off I am.
Yeah. So, all right, perfect. It sounds like they're asking because I think that's probably been a struggle where all three weren't coming together and talking about something that maybe two of them were talking about a lot, and then it was hard to communicate to the third. The third might have felt left out, I guess.
If that ever happens, like if I'm on a conversation with Travis and we're talking about something, Travis will be the first person to say, we need to get Robbie. We'll have this conversation when Robbie's on the phone. So that is what happens if something comes up.
And I would just say, go back to the work chart, right? I mean, Travis and Kelli are specifically designed to go there, whereas I'm specifically designed to go to Colleen. Doesn't mean that Colleen doesn't go to Travis and talk about contracts and ask him questions all the time. It's just that Colleen and the buyer role, my job is to talk about her pipeline. My job is to talk about where are we moving these people forward. And again, I would tell you that, we've made so many mistakes that, that we hope to learn from them. And so I used that Colleen as an example of, we had an excellent buyer's agent on our team a few years ago. She was awesome. And we did not see her growth and we didn't pay attention to it enough. And so one of the beautiful things about coaching was, and I'm going to steal Mickey's words, I want your world as big as you want your world in my world. And my job is to do everything in my power so that your world is as big as you want it to be, and yet you're still part of us. So that's one of the failures that we had that we learned from, that I think coaching helped us down the road, so that we're not making that mistake with this amazing woman that, we took from the beginning that we knew was going to be successful. And now she's crushing it. And, and no, we don't want you to leave. You know what I mean? We want your world in our world. So that's why we're going in the direction we do.
And I mean, you're that way with me as well, right? Like, I mean, not just Colleen. I think that Colleen and I have helped push you guys out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing that I've observed in your relationship, because we see that conversation happen often and we hear those words of, I want her world to be as big as she wants it to be, but there's no put your money where your mouth is in terms of the actual growth. And what I've found interesting watching you guys is there's definitely a dynamic of pushing going both ways. With Kelli wants growth, and she pushes you, and you want Kelli to grow, and it seems like a good yin and yang with actual legs on it.
So I'll go back to what Travis said when we partnered together. And if you remember what Travis said, the reason we partnered together was for one reason. And the real reason was time, right? Yep. We both have a work ethic. Kelli has the work ethic. Colleen has the work ethic. Michaela, Bo, everybody's got our work ethic. And that's the beauty of our team now. The difference is Travis and I are not about the money. We're about the time. And, and I would tell you this, is we want them to have their time off. We want our time off. So, so we probably are not afraid to hire the right people and pay the people and pay them what they deserve and pay them more, because we, we like our time, and I would, and I think that's the difference, is it's not about me, 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 me. And that's the beauty of a partnership. There is no me, me, me. It's an us, right? And, Kelly is the third.
Well, so I'll add two more seconds onto that. So I love that answer, Robbie. When we are having discussions for her to come back, one of the many things I like about Kelly is because she can be in charge of herself, right? And she said, here are the terms, right? I'll come back for this pay. And she's like, I 100% want a coach that you guys are going to take care of. And we're like, yes, yes. And she goes, and I want to be bonus based on your profit, and so that's the growth piece, right? And so we're like 100%, because you make more as the business earns more. Perfect, and I love that about it, because I think that we were thinking something around that along those lines, but she and her personality type, she's like, here it is.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and it works out to be a win-win. It's a win for the team. It's a win for you personally. It's a win for her personally. I love that.
Yep. It's awesome.
So we know that, time is obviously important to you guys. So we have one last question that we'll ask you, and then we'll wrap it up here for everybody. But why do you believe it is so hard to find someone to take over your business? Why is it hard to find the Kelly?
People don't put in the time. It's as simple as that. There's a process, and you got to be willing to dedicate the time. And then when you find that person, you got to put in more time to train them. And if you don't do those things, it will fail 100% of the time. It might fail slowly and you don't realize it, but it will fail. That's just mine. How about you, Robbie?
That's the fierce conversations gradually and suddenly.
I think you said it best.
Awesome. All right. Well, so listen, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. You guys, we're so thankful for you. And we know, just how much your time is worth. And so if people want to get a hold of you and they want to ask you more questions, or they want to give you referrals, how do they do that? Who do they get in contact with?
You can get in contact with me and I'll get you, if it's not me to answer it, I'll make sure I get you in the right direction. You can email me. It's Kelli, Kelli at bellhenderson.com.
And we just want to say that we're truly honored to be here. So thank you guys both. And thank you for all that you do. We really appreciate it.
Really
Awesome.
do.
Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate your time, you guys, and seeing you face to face.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.